Hi. In this video we are going to show you how to change focus and take extra shots when shooting panoramic photos by using MECHA. Access the MECHA's user interface as usual, using a smartphone or computer, then go to the RAW page. Now load your favorite preset, or create a new preset with us. Let's create a preset for a 35mm focal length. The first step is to load a preset. A factory preset might be helpful. For example, test 1313 level, so you have fewer settings to make. 1 TRG means 1 camera trigger signal per position. If your camera is set to manual focus, the AF, or focus, will be ignored. However, keep in mind that triggering some Sony cameras is not possible if the AF is 0. The pause for camera wake up is 1 second. This pause is right at the beginning of the preset, so you can set a higher value if you need to move out of the camera's field of view. There will be no pause before trigger sequences. The modifier of the shutter button signal is 1, so it will have no effect. The duration of the shutter button signal is 0.25 seconds. There is 1 second delay after each trigger sequence. The exposure set on your camera should be no greater than E+A. Or change these settings accordingly. The next pair of settings is for the NX left and NX right buttons, so they aren't important now. And we will also leave the other settings unchanged. The second step is to provide the focal length via the custom option in the shots list. Then confirm by clicking the OK button. MECHA has already created the script that describes the movements needed for a full spherical panorama. In our case, notice that the start position is level, L. This means that the upper rail of the panoramic head must be in the horizontal position when launching the preset. The other two possible positions are parked, P, and raised, R. Then we have the first row with 13 positions at a tilt of 0 degrees, or no tilt. Then the second row with 12 positions at a tilt of -37 degrees. Followed by the third row with 8 positions at a tilt of -75 degrees, and so on. The script ends with 2 positions for zenith and 2 for nadir. When making a panoramic photo, the photographer usually sets the focus to hyperfocal distance, which will allow for most features to be an acceptable focus, and leaves it unchanged for the entire shooting session. However, when you know that there are objects closer to the camera in a certain area, you can set one or more positions where you want to change the focus, either automatically or manually, to get a better result when using MECHA. Set a focus position by adding F in the MECHA script, followed by pitch or tilt, and yaw, separated by a caret symbol. For example, in this script, F-15, caret symbol 90, means a focus position at -15 degrees pitch and 90 degrees yaw, after the first row is completed. MECHA will go to the focus position, and wait for you to press the right arrow button on the controller, or the pause button in the user interface to continue. When you press the button, MECHA sends the focus signal to your camera, then continues shooting. Please note that if you are using a single-axis MECHA, you will have to manually tilt the upper rail of the pan ahead. Now let's see how to tell MECHA you want it to take extra shots when executing a preset. Add V in the MECHA script, followed by pitch or tilt, and yaw, separated by a caret symbol, where V stands for via, and suggests going through this position when the preset is executed. In this script, V-30, caret symbol 90, means an extra shot position at -30 degrees pitch and 90 degrees yaw, after the second row. And V30, caret symbol -90, means an extra shot position at 30 degrees pitch and -90 degrees yaw, after the third row. MECHA will go to the V position and send one or more trigger signals, depending on the value set for TRG, just like for any other position in preset. This means one or more shots in the V position, then continuing shooting. Everything is automatic in case of extra shots and does not require any action on your part, unless you set a pause before extra shots. If you set a pause before extra shots, by adding P in the MECHA script, before V, MECHA will go to the V position and wait for you to press the right arrow button on the controller, or the pause button in the user interface to continue. When you press the button, MECHA sends the trigger signal to your camera to take the extra shot, then continue shooting. Let's recap the changes we've made in the MECHA script. 1 focus position after the first row is completed. 1 extra shot position after the second row is completed. And 1 extra shot position, preceded by a pause, after the third row is completed. Make some notes about the preset. Then save it if you want to keep it in the MECHA's memory, by pressing the Save button, for example. We will launch the preset by pressing the right button. The focus position follows the last position in row 1, at -15 degrees pitch and 90 degrees yaw. Notice that a default pause is set to the focus position. When MECHA is paused, the C2 controller displays pause, and the C1 controller flashes 2 LEDs. If your camera is set to autofocus, you only need to press one of the 2 buttons mentioned earlier to continue. The right arrow button, for example. If your camera is set to manual focus, you need to manually focus, then continue by pressing the right arrow button. MECHA will send the focus signal anyway, but it will be ignored by your camera, as it is set to manual focus. This is row 2. Then the first extra shot position, at -30 degrees pitch and 90 degrees yaw. No default pause is set to extra shot positions, so MECHA will send the camera trigger signal automatically and continue with row 3. After row 3, follows the second position for extra shots, and here we have a pause set in the script. -90 degrees is equivalent to 270 degrees. You can use this pause creatively, and continue at the right time. MECHA waits for you to press the right arrow button, then sends the camera trigger signal, then continues with rows 4 and 5, and ends with the zenith and nadir shots. Thank you for watching.